Hi everyone. It's been a while since I made a video, so I'm excited to connect with you today. Many of us see that there has been some tremendous upgrading happening. Definitely a lot of leveling up. I see it within myself and I see it within so many of you, and it's just mind-blowing how quickly things changed. January was the month of turning us upside down and shaking all of the crap out of our pockets. And then February, I'm not quite sure. February was a little bit of aligning and a little bit of that deep cleansing that was left. And then March has been just amazing. This whole month is going to be magic. I call it March magic. And so, I make a video sometimes and I read these little snippets out of some of these amazing books that come across my path, and I wanted to share two with you today. One of them is called ET 101, the Cosmic Introduction Manual for Planetary Evolvement, and this is co-created by Mission Control and then another name that I can't pronounce, but this was channeled and published in 1990, which is so astonishing to me because it's like direct from like the galactic mission control, and it's explaining all of the things that we see now, which is pretty amazing. The second book that I have come across, and it's like one of those wow things, is the Spiritual Laws of ECK. This is some next level consciousness. I've read the parts of the Kabbalion, but this is on a much, much deeper level. And I just wanted to read to you the first three sections of it, the first three definitions of the words listed in this book, because it's really amazing. And I'm going to jump to the third one, which is number 3, which is this month, March, which is the definition of God. And it states that God of law, everything has its origin in spirit. Divine truth is one and unchanging. The Odyssey of Soul teaches us to cooperate with the laws of God. It takes many lifetimes of bumps and bruises before all the lessons of Godhood sink in. And when they do, we are granted the grace to partake consciously of the highest aspects of sainthood. The law of God states that the soul has existence because God wills it. Thus, God loves all life so dearly that it allows soul to exist. If it did not love life, there would be no life forms in this universe, and all would be barren. Time, space, law, chance, matter, primitive energy, and intelligence are the only effects of God's love for her, and only exist to serve the soul in its journey to find liberation and freedom. The soul is not the cause for the law which brings happiness or misery. Not being free, neither does it act as the prime cause that brings about the opposite. As the free self, it has the opportunity to establish itself as the prime mover for bringing about happiness and letting life be what it should be. It does not establish life, but exists because life itself supports soul as the prime consideration of God's love for every individual soul within the universe. There was a time before lower worlds were created when soul resided in the heavens. It's difficult to conceive such a thing in heaven as a selfish or ungrowing soul, but interestingly enough, it wouldn't serve anyone or anything except itself. And so God sent soul down into the lower worlds, which has been created specifically for it experience. The hardships and troubles, even the happiness and joy, the full spectrum of experience that we know through the 5 senses and beyond, are for soul's unfoldment, so that one day it may become a co-creator with God. This is the purpose of it all. Spiritual enlightenment and illumination come as we contact with this light and sound of God. The eckists see the actual light of God that comes during contemplation, the quiet within, the channeled whispers from the guardians. It gives spiritual upliftment and takes away the karma which has been created throughout our past lives and the daily karma from this lifetime. We do without the light, but can't do without the sound. It is an actual sound that we hear. It may be that of an orchestra. It may be that of a flute. This is the only way that God can speak to us, through either light or the sound. Whenever we have an experience on the inner, we hear a booming voice. It may be a master, whether seen or unseen, another being or an angel of God, but it's not God. The true voice is what we seek. It gives the wisdom and the truth which surpasses all understanding. As we begin to get this light and sound in our life, it shows in how we conduct our daily affairs. Our daily life is a reflection of what happens inwardly. We may be spiritual successful, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be rich. If we set a goal for a project, we ought to get a grasp of spiritual principles from the experience. This helps us succeed in the sense that these experiences take us to the next step in life. What we call success, other people may call failure, because we have a different viewpoint. And because we have this viewpoint, we have happiness and lightness, which many other people would dearly love to experience but have never found. God itself runs a straight course and does not take care of the individual in a sense. Yet it has the individual's welfare close to its heart. All things from heaven to earth are under its care, and it hears the faint chirp of the crickets, though it seems deaf to the loudest prayers. So we are appointed as ECK gurus to take care of who will come for help. Lo, you are weary and burdened. Come unto me, and I will take your burden. Remember that? That is our responsibility in life. The living ECK Master, the God-man who is now living in the physical universe, cares for all life. Trust in him. One of the most prevalent misunderstandings is that the law of God works only for those who have a devout or religious objective. That is a fallacy. It works just impersonally as any laws of physics. It can be used for greed or selfish purposes as well as noble ones. The greatest principle of God is the survival of the individual, that is soul. The dynamic principle of existence is survival. Let it be known here and now that all knowledge and all wisdom are never given to soul, for the world of God is without beginning and without end, infinite in all attributes and qualities, and constantly expanding toward greater truth and greater wisdom. So, I don't even know what else there is to read after that. It's literally like, that's all the chapter, the definition of God, and that's number 3. In numerology, that's number 3. It's the awareness of energy and the projection of, because thought is energy and motion. The second thing I wanted to read, which is the first definition in the book, is called causation. Causation is the will of life, which is a factor in the human and spiritual cycles of life, which is karma. So 1, amplified with a 0, which is 10, is karma. The ECK power in 1 is also like absolute alignment, which is causation, right? If you're in alignment with yourself, number 1, what we project, we get back. The ECK power is the intelligence which pervades all space and emanates all living things. This mental action and reaction is the law of causation. The principle of causation does not begin in the individual, but in the cosmic power. It is not an object facility, or not an objective faculty, but a subjective process. And the results are seen in an infinite variety of conditions and experiences. In order to express life, there must be the power. Nothing can exist without the cosmic power. Everything which exists is some manifestation of this basic power from which and by all things have been created and continually are being recreated. Man lives in a fathomless sea of plastic ether called the ECK power. And this substance is either alive and active. It is sensitive to the highest degree. Thought form takes mold or matrix from that which the substance expresses. The other aspect of spirit, even more important than the light, is that which we know as the sound. The sound current is actually the voice of God, spoken of in the Bible as the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. This voice, the creative current which comes from God, has created the lower worlds. It comes out like a radio wave from a central broadcasting station. It's like a pebble thrown into a quiet lake calling ripples to go out. These waves go out, but they must always come back to the center. It's the returning wave that we are interested in. This is what soul is looking for, the return to God's center. When it returns to the God center, we call this God realization or the God consciousness. Someone wrote to me from a farm in Africa. He said a hen laid a bunch of eggs that were fertilized by a funny-looking rooster whose head and neck were bald. Every time the rooster would come in the yard, the family would laugh at it. It was all pretty funny until the eggs hatched. One of the chicks came out looking exactly like the rooster, bald head, bald neck. Because the little thing was so ugly and small, the other chicks picked on it and finally broke its leg. To protect it, the family had to bring it in the house. The person who wrote this letter said, "You know, it's interesting. We laughed at this rooster that was bald-headed and bald neck, and now all of a sudden we found that one, just like him, has taken up residence in our home." Thoughts of any nature are going to come back home to roost. It's called the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect, which we also call law of attraction. The eckists are quite familiar with it. So the second one is consciousness. And this is called consciousness, the law of. The recognition or realization of the beingness of self or thing and thought, which manifests eternal life and form, awareness, clarity. Everything in the universe has its origin in idea and thought, and it has its completion in the manifestation of thought through form. Many intermediate stages are necessary, but the cause and effect of the series are the thought and the thing. This shows that in essence the thing already existed in the thought. This is consciousness, meaning the thought is the thing, therefore the thing already exists because it comes to us from somewhere else. If it is a true fact that the thing must be a thought before thought can form the thing, then it is plain that the divine ideal can only be life. I'll start over. Then it is plain that the divine ideal can only be internalized as our objective life in the proportion it is first formed in our thought. It takes form from our thought only to extend when we have apprehended its existence in the divine ECK. Soul is the thinker of thoughts. The consciousness responds when directed by soul, which means the channel, our group of guides, which is our soul, guides the consciousness, and the human is the consciousness. The human becomes aware of the subconscious and the channel, thoughts, and then boom, we are aware of the consciousness. So it says, the consciousness responds when directed by soul, which beyond all thought, beyond all matter, energy, space, and time. The very act of thinking imposes self-consciousness because all thoughts are possible only through self-consciousness. The consciousness of self, therefore, we project and then receive. Therefore, that which I am, that which is above and beyond all thoughts, cannot be revealed by the consciousness nor the intellect. The quiet within, the whispers lead the way. That's why when we shut out our humanistic swirling thoughts, we're able to hear the divine messages and receive the divine frequency. That's why we have to just transcend this humanistic stuff, family, because it was relevant to who we were. And the situations we're in right now, if they don't seem ideal, they're just based on who we were. We're transitioning and upgrading out of that spectrum. So release the emotional cords and just handle it, and knowing and trusting that when we set forth that self-love, that the guardians, the cosmos, whatever we want to call it, takes care of all that we project. Even when the consciousness cannot think of it, which means when the human can't think of it, it is possible for soul, which I am, to know the whole thing in a complete way. If you don't know the answer to something and you keep thinking and you keep thinking it's making you crazy, that means it's time to let it go and know that the answer will come. One of the things I'm learning about mind magic is that if we don't know the answer to something, or we really need a solution, ask your channel, like send the signal in your mind and say, hey, I need to summon some help. I need some assistance, or I need this aligned, or this doesn't feel good. Can you assist me with this? And it always comes about. That's why we have to be mindful for the spells that we cast with our thoughts and then our words, because we have aligned and are raising the frequency of manifesting this energy of guided assistance. So thought projection is a real thing. And if you want to elevate your life, it all starts with thought. And really, it's about maintaining the energy flow when it doesn't feel comfortable. Like for me, the frequency gets so wild sometimes and it makes me feel, ugh. And since I've detached so much with attaching emotion to things that I feel, I'm able to like shake that frequency off by talking it down inside of me. Like literally, I talk myself to a higher frequency because we're able to do that. In the creation process of soul, we become the individual reflection of what we realize the divine power to be relative to oneself. If we realize the divine is the infinite potential of all that can constitute a perfect human being, this conception must, by the law of creation, gradually build up a corresponding image in our thoughts, which in turn will act on our external condition. That's what I just said. Oh, man. This is by the law of consciousness, is the nature of the process. All you have to do is remember that, and all that troubles you will go away. We don't even have to transcend the old stuff. Just focus on recreating the new and aligning with that, and everything else goes away naturally. Like we literally don't have to do anything but focus on what makes us feel good, and everything else will go away. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be a lovely feel-good process. Us humans have to remember and stay humble that, yeah, this feels good, but it's a process of elimination. We are integrating with our higher selves by galactic assistance. We are molecularly being upgraded, and that takes the psyche to a whole nother place also. Our brains are molecularly being upgraded. Our DNA is being enhanced, and that physically affects our human, but it most certainly affects us mentally. We're letting go of the old constraints, whether we choose to do it or not. We each choose our own state of consciousness. It takes a while for many individuals, even many ECK initiates, to recognize this. We make our own worlds. What we are today is a sum total of everything we have thought or have been throughout the ages. Yes, we do make our own worlds. What we project, we receive, but as a collective, as a galactic collective, we're really, we're a part of the cycle of that. But at the end of the day, we are being upgraded, whether we like it or not, because humans forget that it's just not about us. We are not the rulers of this planet. No one is, except the it, or the ECK, or whatever, the energy, the flow. Therefore, we are the creators of this experience, because everything that we put out, everything that we share, the frequencies that we give off, continues to ripple, like it said, a pebble on the pond. It sends that ripple out. So if we're constantly sharing things of a lower vibration all the time, that's what we're going to get. We have to change our word magic, our influence, and find ways to talk about the things that don't feel good in a way that lifts people up. That's how we set a different frequency. That's how I've been shown to reprogram the way I choose to communicate. I want to see a lot of happy faces and not sad faces, and we're able to talk about sad stuff without creating the sad faces. It's interesting. All paths to God are provided by Spirit for the express purpose of giving soul and its varying states of consciousness a choice in how it wants to return to God. Each path leads to another path and then to another. It is one thing to be born into a certain state of consciousness, but we owe it to ourselves to make the effort to reach higher and beyond. We have a choice to align with what's already the reality. But we didn't know that. That's why we were all like not being our authentic selves. We certainly weren't taught this, so we know we're in a new state of consciousness when we are being upgraded to share this message, you know. That's how we know that things have flipped, that the old paradigm is over, and we are slowly integrating into this new galactic frequency. And there's a pocket of us, if you're watching this, you're involved, you're aware of this, you know, and it's spreading out more and more. Upon birth, we are given whatever consciousness we need to get from birth to death. And the kind that allows us to go to school, learn a trade or a profession, and make our way. But it takes a special effort to go beyond and reach greater states of consciousness. We can do this by direct experience with light and sound of spirit. Every time you move into another state of consciousness, your nutritional laws may change. This was a big one for me because I'm in this path. Then you start juggling your diet and vitamins. When you finally lose track, you may end up needing to go to a nutritionist. But why? Because you were going through different states of consciousness and your body, is responding to the law, physically upgrading. As above, so below. As you grow into your state of consciousness or you come nearer to another initiation, things begin to change and you wonder what's happening. Initiation means the shift. When we get another huge shift of energy, and then all of a sudden we're fasting, and then all of a sudden we're eating a bunch, and the body knows what it needs when it's upgrading. All we have to do is just pay attention and listen. It's simply that your state of consciousness is changing. Even your word, your secret word, may not work anymore, and you may ask to find a new one. So yeah, I mean, that's just a few pages, the first 3 definitions of this book called The Spiritual Laws of ECK, which I highly recommend checking out. It's just like the deepest, esoteric wisdom in its most simplistic form to understand. And it's because we're at a level of consciousness that we are aligning and can understand this verbiage. Lots of people are shifting the grid. Lots of people are moving timelines. A lot of people are transcending all of their possessions and going on the road and traveling and changing jobs. And it's because the grid has been reworked. And there's been some confirmations going around today. And I've seen a lot of confirmations myself that we have definitely upgraded to a completely new frequency, which some are calling 5D. I don't know what you want to call it, but we're on a way different level now. And so now we can all just take a break, right? And relax and enjoy this time, because this is our rebirth. We are finding and rediscovering, we are being activated to remember our mission, our life's purpose. So for me, that's why it's easy for me to let go of this humanistic attachment to things. And it doesn't stop. I mean, yeah, I've reached a pretty high level of consciousness. I feel really good in myself. I feel really at a level of peace and comfort. But it changes every day. There's always new energy. There's always new human energy. There's always, life shifts, because it's not about it being unicorns and rainbows all the time, but it's remembering that it is. And just moving in the flow. Just because it feels good doesn't mean it always isn't. But we know when it isn't for sure. So it's learning to trust the guides, recognizing the guides and knowing that this is a mental and physical transition on my platform and social media, and lots and lots of people in this spectrum are here to help and guide and be guided. And there's so much to this, and there's so much knowledge, and it's so infinite that if you think you have it, you don't. If you think you know everything, that is foolish. And that's something that I have embraced within myself, that, that's the transcendence of ego, thinking that one way is the only way and you have it. Like, if you have it for you, that's great, but know that that is not the all. And having that wisdom and embracing that leaves us open to the energy, that leaves us open to our very own manifestations. If we put ourselves locked in a box of who we think we are and they are and it is, then that doesn't really leave the doorway open for the swirl of energy to assist us in what we're projecting, or actually what we're seeing, because our visions, our purposes in life are channeled to us. And the human can pick up the phone, hello, okay, yes, I hear you now, mission control, activation ready. And that's all it takes, is the awareness of the channel. If you're not aware, start talking to it and see if you become aware. It's like that easy. It's literally like they're waiting to assist. And they're already existing, but when you acknowledge the channel, you send the signal out to higher level masters to come into your channel to activate the heart space, the heart chakra, and to begin, full Kundalini. It's definitely a thing. I've been shown that there's not going to be a new wave of new hybrids to be upgraded. I saw that there was like a 7-year timeline, and I think that we're in the 3rd year, with 5, left to complete, or 4. I'm not sure. So if anyone knows that timeline, please feel free to comment it. But I don't know if there's going to be another wave after that, but the frequency is set. So at this point, the activators, which is myself and all of you watching, we're here to activate the other hybrids. So that's why everyone's sharing all of this information, because I saw someone put up an angry face. It's not because of anything bad. Like, when we stop putting emotion and just listen to the message, we can understand things more authentically. It's not that more humans aren't going to activate. It's that certain humans have a job here to do certain things. And that is to continue out the mission, which are the activations. And so it's a team effort. It's a collective. Instead of getting mad, get happy and start sharing and activating, participate and raising the frequency. Like, it's time to get real, or just people can do whatever they want. But if we want to live in a life of internal abundance, we have to let go of holding on and getting angry at everything and getting everything personal. We have to stop our reaction and listen to the message, because we are merely a reflection for someone that's in front of us communicating. And one way or the other, we learn something about life, whether it's about that person, about ourselves, or both of us, and how we react. It's just about going after what feels good. And if something makes you not feel good, think about why it's making you not feel good versus the reaction. Because then we have to go back and we have to recognize that we've reacted in a way. And that's how we learn. I still do it. Just about every day. It just depends on what humans we're involved with. Everyone's a trigger. Everyone triggers something, and we're here as a collective to grow together, not to push each other away. I live in the light of being open, and not it's just so much easier to communicate with people that don't take things so personally, and can transcend it easily and take responsibility when we do, because we're still going to take things personally. I can talk about it all day long, but it still happens because I am still human. We are still human, and we just have to understand that we have this amazing astral, galactic thing going on, but we are still human. So we have to, that is the twin flame union. It's the union of the galactic self, the higher self, with the human. And it's the balance. I always refer to myself and other people as it's a two-way street. It's two people. It's two-way communication. And it becomes easier that way. So anyway, family, I love you, tribe, and thanks for hanging out. And I'm going to be studying more of these books, and I'll keep sharing. And thank you for sharing and caring and hanging out with me these last couple years. And more of us are continuing to join together, and it's all out of love. So if someone's angry and mean to you, it's all out of love. You just tell them, hey man, it's all out of love. And then we don't have to engage anymore, because we are doing the transcendence of the old human ways, and the subconscious mind reacts before it's in line. And so, we can't really take it personally when someone lashes out, because we lash out too. I love you to the moon, family.